Rights really speaks to citizens' input into the budget process, and in terms of helping to determine the various public projects that we have, that we're expected to do in the community. The idea is to utilize the community more than we've been utilizing it. And so what we're looking for really is a mechanism to do this. While the Neighborhood Bill of Rights is somewhat of an outline in terms of the rights of citizens, we're looking at a more robust plan of action, implementation. And so hopefully Stephanie and Chiquita will be able to really let us know how we can proceed, how we can be part of helping to develop a plan for community engagement in city government. And so we're willing and able, we're ready to go. I want to, before I turn it over to Houston, just thank all of our interns that have been working with us over the months. They are really contributing a lot. We cannot really afford, this type of expertise from our students. So thank all of you for your work. And I want to thank our partners, not only with the Neighborhood Bill of Rights, but for some of the other issues that we're dealing with in this community. So thank all of you for participating. Dennis, thank you. Oh, before I move on, let me first introduce our new chairwoman of the Jacksonville Urban League Board of Directors. And I want to introduce Michelle Godfrey Watkins. Michelle.
Good evening, everyone. Michelle Godfrey Watson. Just excited to be here and to really hear what everyone has to say. I am an advocate for the Jacksonville Urban League, and I'm looking forward to see how we can leverage this Neighborhood Bill of Rights. So I'm looking for an intriguing conversation. So I'm here, and it's a pleasure to meet each one of you this evening. Thanks.
Houston, before you take over, I want to make sure that Ms. Burch and Ms. Moore give us a little bit of their backgrounds, and particularly your educational background, Ms. Burch. People will know why I'm saying that in a minute. You're being introduced by Houston Harris, an intern at the Center for Advocacy and Social Justice, and he is a law student at Florida Coastal School of Law. So with that, Houston, please take over.
Thank you, Dennis. Good evening, everyone. First off, I want to thank all of you that have jumped on here and joined us. It's a great turnout. Secondly, I want to thank our guests from city government, Ms. Chiquita Moore and Stephanie Burch. Ms. Burch is the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer at the Mayor's Office, and Ms. Moore is the Operations Director for the Neighborhoods Department. I want to thank both of you for being here tonight. Here in just a moment, I'll turn the floor over to them and they'll give their presentation for as long as they want. But after that, we hope to do a Q&A session where all of you who are joined can utilize the chat feature of Zoom. And if there's any questions that you have for either of them or anyone else on the panel, please be, feel free to ask a question and we'll try to address those one by one. But first, let's turn the floor over to our two guests, Ms. Burch and Ms. Moore.
Right. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you, Houston. My name is Stephanie Burch. I'm the Deputy CAO in the Mayor's Office, and with me is Chiquita Moore, the Operations Director for the Neighborhoods Department. Per Dennis's request to go into our backgrounds just a little bit, I think both of our backgrounds are actually pretty interesting for where we sit today. But my background, my educational background, my undergrad degree, I received from Michigan State University in Fisheries and Wildlife. And then I went to law school at Florida Coastal. So I am an FCSL alum from December of '05 was when I graduated. I was lucky enough to get into real estate when I was in college, or I'm sorry, when I was in law school, and worked in private practice doing commercial and residential real estate once I graduated from FCSL. And then the real estate market crashed and I had to find another line of work. So I went to Tallahassee and worked for the Florida Department of Transportation in the General Counsel's office for 5 years. And then my family and I returned to Jacksonville in 2015, and I started working for the city of Jacksonville in 2016. I started as chief of real estate. Then I moved to the director of the neighborhoods department. And then I moved into the mayor's office in 2019. So that's a little bit on my background. Chiquita?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. Much like Miss Stephanie, my background is interesting as well, but it's actually built me up to this point. I actually started, before I came to the city of Jacksonville, I actually worked corporate America and law enforcement for the majority of my work life. I got my undergrad degree from the University of North Florida with a BS in psychology. I'm currently in a Master of Public Policy program at JUL, where I am a minority fellowship scholar. And that's going very well. I'll actually finish that at the end of this year, so I'm excited about that. I started my career with the city of Jacksonville now about 6 years ago as an executive council assistant for Councilmember Sam Newby, Group 5 at large. I worked for Councilmember Newby for about 3 years before I was given the opportunity to work as an intergovernmental affairs.
Let us know.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
After working for Councilman Newby for 3 years, I was given the opportunity to work as an intergovernmental affairs liaison for Mayor Curry, of which I worked there for about a year and a half. And then I was actually promoted to the operations director of the neighborhoods department, which is where I am today. And that's all I have. I'm sorry.
Houston?
So Houston, you're on mute, Houston.
You're muted, Houston.
Okay, there. I was trying to unmute, but
There
someone
we
had to allow me to do that. Okay, thank you guys for giving us your backgrounds. If you could speak to a little bit, I know Dennis and I came up with some questions that we sent to you all. There's 3 questions. The first one, I'll just go through these one by one, and then if you guys could speak on each one, that would be great. Is that okay with you all?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the first question we had was, what is the city of Jacksonville doing to engage the community to gather information relative to budget development?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Houston. So the city actually does many different things to get information from our citizens regarding the budget. The budget process, just kind of a broad overview, typically starts in about February of every year. And just so you know, our fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th. So we start preparing in February to put our budget together, which is typically presented to City Council by the mayor in mid to late July. So it takes several months of work to create the budget. So we start getting information from our departments in February, March timeframe. Then we go through a series of meetings with the mayor's budget review committee. Those are all publicly noticed. Anybody can come to those meetings if they choose to. And so we go through those meetings with the mayor's budget review committee. And then after that, there may or may not be changes based on how those meetings go. But after that, then the mayor will present his budget to City Council, like I said, in mid to late July. And then there will be a series of public meetings with the City Council Finance Committee. Again, all of those are publicly noticed meetings. Anybody can come to them and provide input. But they are typically all-day meetings that happen on Thursdays and Fridays for 3 to 4 weeks, typically, like I said, in August. City Council then has to pass the entire budget and have it ready to go by September 30th so that we can start our new fiscal year on October 1st, okay? So that's kind of a quick overview of the budget process. But as far as how the city engages citizens to provide input, number one, and like you all are aware, according to the Neighborhood Bill of Rights, the CPACs, which is Citizens Planning Advisory Committees. The city CPACs are our main way to engage with the citizens. So when you go to CPAC meetings, or if you're a member of a CPAC, they meet every month, except typically July and December. But outside of that, they meet every month and have various agendas. But we have department heads who attend the meetings every month as well. So you have department heads giving updates, taking feedback, helping with issues, whatever it may be at those CPAC meetings that happen once a month. But starting in February, March of every year, our CIP, which is our capital improvement plan, and that essentially is for any kind of project any kind of infrastructure project that is worth more than $100,000. That's the threshold for a capital improvement project that goes on the CIP. And those are typically the projects that Public Works is doing, Parks is doing, JFRD with new fire stations, things like that. Okay, those are typically your big infrastructure projects. But our CIP coordinator sends a letter to every CPAC in February or March every year to ask for feedback from the CPAC about what kinds of projects they would like to see included in the CIP for the next fiscal year. So there's a period of time that the CPAC has, they obviously need to meet. And by the way, those are all public meetings as well. So anybody can attend those CPAC meetings if they choose to. But it gives the CPACs a chance to meet, to kind of finalize their list, and then send that back to our CIP coordinator. And then there are CIP meetings within the administration to kind of put together the CIP that will then be included in the mayor's budget. Okay, so that is the main way, is participating through the CPAC. However, as I kind of already mentioned, there are multiple entry points along the way for people to provide input. Number one, anybody can come to a city council meeting and take 3 minutes at the podium and provide public comment on what they would like to see in the budget. That happens every 2 weeks at city council meetings. There's also finance committee meetings that happen for city council every 2 weeks. Anybody can go there and provide public comment on what they would like to see included in the budget. So we have our CPACs, we have all of the city council meetings. We have the budget meetings that I talked about with the finance committee, where we have the different departments present their budgets to the finance committee. There's also many council members who have town halls. Councilwoman Morgan is a great example of that. She has a town hall meeting every single month. And she typically has some department heads go as well. So they attend to provide updates and information. And she's very consistent with her town hall. So a lot of council members have town halls. That's another great way to provide input for what you would like to see in the budget. And then obviously, we also receive complaints through 630 City or the MyJax system. And then we get complaints through the mayor's office. And a lot of council members get complaints from constituents for things that need to be fixed, you know, whether there's a stop sign missing or there's a ditch that needs to be cleaned out, whatever it may be. And so sometimes we will see a trend with what those complaints are, and we'll, you know, pick up on the fact that, well, maybe this creek needs to be dredged sooner than what we thought because there's an additional runoff problem or something like that. So there is a balancing act with how much we can move projects up in the CIP, and maybe there's some that might be able to wait a little bit longer to be addressed. So we are able to identify trends through the complaints that we get through 630 City, and then obviously the communication that we have on a regular basis with our city council members. And then really the last thing that kind of came to mind where people can participate and provide information or your thoughts or feedback on the city's budget would be in boards and commissions. The city has over 70 boards and commissions that are available for our citizens to participate in. Number one, you could be a board or commission member. And if so, then you very much have a stake in what happens on that agenda for that particular board or commission every month. But also all of those are publicly noticed meetings. So anybody can attend any board or commission meeting. And again, there's always an opportunity for public feedback, for public comment at those meetings as well. So those are kind of generally the ways that the city engages with the public to receive feedback on our budget. And I would like to have Chiquita kind of go through our CPACs. For those who maybe aren't familiar with what a CPAC is, Chiquita is going to give you an overview of how to, really what the purpose of the CPACs are and how to participate in them.
Ms. Moore, before you begin, if you wouldn't mind, when speaking about the CPACs, because I had a question, would you address how a neighborhood organization becomes a CPAC? Because I know some of us at the center the past couple of days, the interns, we've been looking at the neighborhood lists that are provided on the city's website. Some of those neighborhood organizations are listed as CPAC while others are not. I was wondering if you could speak at some point as you go over the CPACs, how the neighborhoods that aren't can become a member, if you could do that, please.
Sure, absolutely. I'll go ahead and answer that question for you before I get started. Essentially, the only thing that a neighborhood has to do is register through our neighborhoods database. We have a registry on our website. I put together a PowerPoint, but we didn't want to send it to you at the last minute, but I'd be more than happy to share the PowerPoint that I actually put together that'll actually, make all of this, what I'm telling you, actually make sense, and it'll actually show you some boundaries for the actual CPACs as well. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. If we can get that PowerPoint pulled up, if you guys can share your screen.
Sure, if you wanted to make me a presenter, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, because can you do that for us, please?
I think only Dennis can do it.
Oh, okay. Dennis, could you help us out here, please?
No, actually, she should be able to do it.
Can you see it? I actually have it up.
No, not yet. Give us just a second, please.
Okay, share screen. It says the host disabled participant screen sharing.
Well,
Okay.
it's set up to allow you to do that. So let me try something else here.
Okay, let me try it again. Still saying that it's disabled.
Can you make her a co-host?
I can do that. I can also allow her to share her screen.
There you go. You're a co-host too.
Okay.
Try it now.
There we go. If you hit share.
Can you see it?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So as Ms. Burch actually mentioned earlier, we have our regular scheduled CPACs, which stand for Citizen Planning Advisory Committees. Again, we call them CPACs. Our CPACs are actually organized according to the 6 planning districts that we have. And we have 3 different neighborhood service coordinators that actually service them. So for each CPAC, you have a coordinator, and you actually see where their names and telephone numbers and email addresses are listed below, and the manager for the neighborhood services office, who actually oversees the neighborhood services coordinators. And again, I know that this may be a lot of information, but I'd be more than happy to share this information with the group so that you can actually distribute it as you see necessary.
Please, that'd be great.
Again, the CPACs, the history of it is that they were actually formed back in 1993 under the leadership of former Mayor Ed Austin as a way to look to get citizens involved with local government. To repeat, each planning district has a CPAC. So we have 6 different planning districts, and so we have 6 different CPACs. The purpose of the CPACs is to maintain open and effective lines of communication between residents, businesses, neighborhoods, community organizations, educational institutions, and government. The membership, it's really easy to become a member of a CPAC, just attending some of the meetings. The minimum is attending at least 3 meetings. As long as you live, work, or play in one of the areas, then you'll actually be eligible to become a member after filling out an application. But members are appointed by the mayor to serve as advisory community and give advice on community issues. CPAC meetings, as Ms. Burch mentioned earlier, they meet monthly to address district concerns and serve as a vehicle for two-way communication between citizens and city government. And we're always looking for new members for CPACs. Right now, we really don't have, some of the CPACs have more members than others, but right now, especially in the communities that you all are advocating more or less for, we really don't have as many members as we really should. So we're advocating for anybody, including students, young adults, to actually help advocate and promote change. So planning district number 1 is actually the urban core. We actually host that meeting the first Monday of each month. That's held in the Ed Ball building on the first floor in the training room. If you look down below, you'll actually see the boundaries of where you have to either live, work, or play to actually allow you to become a member of the urban core CPAC. This is for planning district number 2. This is for Greater Arlington Beaches CPAC. This is held at the second Monday of each month at the Ed Austin Regional Park in the Police Athletic Building out on Monument Road. It's actually held again on the second Monday of each month at 6:30. And you'll see the boundaries listed below. Our third CPAC is in the Southeast. The Southeast CPAC meeting is held on the 4th Monday of each month at the Mandarin Senior Center. That's out on Hartley Road. Their meetings begin promptly at 6:30. In planning district number 4, that's our Southwest CPAC. Their meetings are held on the second Monday of each month at Mary Lena Gibbs Gymnasium. That's out on Wilson Boulevard. Their meetings are held at promptly 6:30. And the boundaries are listed below. Planning district number 5, that's the Northwest CPAC. This is one of the CPACs where I do want to mention where we do actually need more active participation. This is held on the second Thursday of each month at Lincoln Villa Senior Center. That's out on New Kings Road. Their meetings begin at 6 p.m. And again, the boundaries are listed below. And lastly, we have Planning District 6. This is our North CPAC, which is held at the second Wednesday of each month. This is held out at the Ocean Way Community Center on Saga Avenue, and their meetings begin at 5:30. And once again, the boundaries are listed below. So the CPACs, as we stated earlier, are actually coordinated and supervised by our Neighborhood Services Office. So please know that that office is there to serve you. The Neighborhoods Department is there for you as well. So if you're not able to get any information from the Neighborhood Services Office, feel free to contact the Director Brian Mosier, or myself as the Operations Director, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. I'd also like to add that in addition to the meetings that we have every month, we also offer quarterly CPAC chair meetings. This gives them an additional opportunity for them to have a voice in front of the administration, where the CPAC chairs actually come and advocate on behalf of their actual CPACs. So if they have any ongoing issues, of which we typically track through a SIRV report, which is a situational incident report that we actually complete every quarter for any ongoing larger issues or ongoing issues that some of the CPACs may have, we actually track those and send those to each department so that they can actually update the status of those different projects. And I'm proud to say that, you know, since I have actually been in the mayor's office, in the neighborhoods department, we've actually completed a lot of those different projects that have been of large concern to the CPAC members. So I'm really excited to say that. As a matter of fact, we have one tomorrow morning at 8:30 where we're gonna meet with the CPAC chairs so that we can actually go over that situational report, where we have all of the city's department heads actually sit in on the meetings so that they can actually talk to the CPAC chairs and hear any new items that they may have and address the ones that are actually on the situational incident report as well. So again, I can't emphasize enough that this is the best way, and the way that we encourage the most participation. We encourage you to share this information with any of your family, any of your friends. Get the word out about the CPACs, because we do need members. And this is the best way for people's voices to be heard throughout the city, so that we can actually get that information to the mayor's office and to any other department head, so that we can know exactly what those problems are that exist in the community, because we do need the community to know what's going on. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moore. It was very informative. A lot of information there.
Thank you.
Dr. Danford or Richard, unless you have anything you want to interject, I think we might start the Q&A session, if that's okay.
Okay,
Go ahead, Dr. Danford.
thank you, Houston. Certainly, I have a number of questions. I mean, this has been a great overview. However, I'm looking for, is there a process? I'm a little confused, because on the one hand, I hear that we have 3 minutes to respond in these various committees and to city councilman members. I'm trying to figure out, do we have to go through our city council member in these various districts in order to bring forth projects that may be beneficial, or that we think may be beneficial to the community? I'm trying to find where do you go? You know, you don't go directly, since the mayor offers up a budget. So he does all the work, and then we respond to all the work. And maybe Stephanie can answer this in terms of how can we get somewhat on the front end of that? Is it possible? Is it possible to engage with the mayor's office prior to perhaps it going to the council? I'm just, is that possible? Does maybe a response to that? That's really the crux of it. How can citizens participate and provide input and offer up programs and services in that process? Because really, once the mayor submits this to the council, it's pretty much, you know, we process that, but with few exceptions, it's pretty much a done deal. So what we're looking at and how we can get in before it goes to city council, if that at all possible.
Sure. Yes, it is very possible. And the way to do that is to participate with your local CPAC. Because like I stated earlier, our CIP coordinator sends out a letter to every CPAC in February or March of every year to get feedback from the CPAC about what projects the CPAC would like to see in their planning district. So that is absolutely the way, that is the conduit to the mayor's office regarding the budget, is through the CPAC.
But there are exceptions to the rule, because you can, you know, council members have the opportunity to present programs and services or whatever during their stage. I'm just thinking, you know, we have a CPAC that may not be as functional, Chiquita, as we want it, we desire. We need more members in this CPAC. So if the CPAC isn't functioning effectively and providing input from the citizens to that process, then citizens are left frustrated. And perhaps that's where we need help. And that's where we need to make even a more concerted effort to include community members. I'm not questioning whether this is a good way of doing it in terms of the CPACs, but I think it can be improved. And so what we're asking and looking for is maybe we can develop or maybe we can expand the Neighborhood Bill of Rights are to outline the steps, real simple terms such that citizens can get more involved and bring more opportunities to the mayor rather than having perhaps to go through a city council member. But certainly I know that you should go through the CPAC, but if it's not effective, then where are the people in these communities to go?
So let me, I hear your question and what you're saying, Dr. Danford. And so what I would do is I would ask you all, if the CPAC is not an acceptable conduit for this type of information, what would you recommend? We're here to listen. So if you all have ideas about a more effective way to communicate things, the citizens' wishes or desires about the budget, what would you recommend? What would be a realistic way for us to be able to engage on those kinds of topics?
Well, I think this is a first step, more education in terms of the process. And I would imagine that there are people that are zooming in that really had no knowledge of the process.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we can do a better job of advertising, et cetera, et cetera. We can't do enough to show the community that we respect their input. But and I believe we do, but we've got to have a simple way of doing it rather than the embarrassing way of just standing before the council for 3 minutes and expressing your concerns or your issues. And quite frankly, I just don't know if that's really effective. It is for certain things, but if you have been problems in a certain community, you need to engage the community. So maybe, as for example, you have the Strategic Partnerships Office, where they're engaging in certain companies and organizations around some issues. Okay, so give us something. Do you have a community engagement office? Or something similar. I know what you do, Chiquita. I understand the neighborhood process, but does community engagement rise to a level where it is where citizens feel that they are being listened to? And so maybe I'll let some others speak, but that's
Yeah, so sure. So our community engagement office is the neighborhood services office. So that is the city's community engagement office. So if that is not how people want to engage with the city of Jacksonville, then I am all ears to any kind of recommendations that you all might have. I will say there a couple of years ago with the prior city council, there were a few council members, Bill Gullifer, Lori Boyer, Greg Anderson, and there were a couple of other people who had convened a committee that was all about the consolidated government. A big topic of conversation during those meetings was CPACs. And so we discussed about, well, are the boundaries the right boundaries to use? Are 6 enough CPACs? Are there changes that should be made to the bylaws and all of that? And really where we landed was we made a couple of changes that we could, because we didn't want to go back in and change the executive order just yet that we operate under, because we recognize that in a couple of years, there's going to be redistricting. So there may be an opportunity to make changes to the boundaries based on the redistricting that happens under state law. So there may be a way to make the CPACs make more sense regarding their boundaries. And at that same time, if there's other changes we need to make to the executive order and the bylaws for the CPACs, then we are happy to take care of it then. So we made just one of them was our quarterly meetings between the mayor's office and the CPAC chairs, where the CPAC chairs are able to voice their concerns, on a regular basis with the mayor's office. So we engage with them every quarter with the CPAC chair. So all I'm trying to say is, I hear your concern. I'd like to hear some recommendations from you all on what you think would be good ways to receive feedback.
Let me interject here if I could, just for a moment. I think the plan was we were going to do this Q&A, and then afterwards, some of these questions were answered. Then we could kind of come together and maybe give suggestions. I think that was the goal for the end, if that's okay, because we do have some questions that are being asked right now, if that's okay with the two of you.
Sure, it's your meeting, Houston.
Thank you very much. So first off, Kimberly Allen asked, if participation in certain districts is low, how can we be sure their interest is being represented in the budget process?
Well, because every CPAC is communicated with by the CIP coordinator. So the chair for that CPAC responds, and we make sure that there's a response from every CPAC, because all the CPACs have a CPAC coordinator in the neighborhood services office who is also providing administrative support to the CPAC to ensure that they're getting their responses in on time.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Lauren Husband. She says CPACs are not affected because most people who need a voice are not able to attend meetings because they are essential workers. So I guess the question would be, what other types of forums could we have that would allow people who are essential workers that can't make it to these meetings? Maybe a format like this, a Zoom format, would that be possible?
CPACs are by Zoom right now.
Okay, great.
Hybrid meetings.
Yep, they have hybrid public meetings, so you don't have to come in person. You can join the Zoom.
Okay, and could those be held at times that maybe people who aren't able to get off work, or those held at after 5 o'clock hours? Or those?
They're all held after 5.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Next question. Rogers Kane asked, maybe I missed it, but can basic contact information on CPAC meeting dates and do Zoom meetings have to be in person? I think we just answered that. So no on the second part, but yeah, and I have a question about the basic contact information too. And Rogers asked about the CPAC meetings, but as I said earlier, several of us at the center have been looking at the neighborhood organizations list that are provided on the city's website. And we've been trying to reach out to those different organizations and are having a really hard time just finding anyone that we can get a hold of with that organizations to get in and plug ourselves into this pipeline that you're talking about, to be able to engage with them, to be involved with the CPACs. So could you address that? How is there a better way to get those people's information disseminated out so that regular citizens can become more engaged?
Yeah, it sounds like he's trying to engage with the actual neighborhood organizations instead of the CPAC coordinator. And he really needs to engage with the CPAC coordinator to get involved with the CPAC.
I guess the CPAC coordinator, are they engaged with those neighborhood organizations? That's
Absolutely. They're the ones who actually manage the database for the neighborhood organizations. So if you need any specific information on how to become more engaged, I would actually suggest that you reach out to those coordinators. And again, I can share the PowerPoint with you all that has all of their names and contact information on there.
Okay, thank you. That would be great. And I think maybe after the meeting, if anyone wants to put their email address in the chat box, we will get those slides sent to you. Moving on to the next question.
Houston, there's Eunice Barnum has been having her hand up for a bit, so maybe if we could have her ask her question.
I can unmute her.
Sure, absolutely.
I just give her the unmuting power. I don't know if she can probably unmute it later if she becomes available.
Okay. Ms. Barnum, if you want to unmute, you can ask your question. If you're not able to do that, I'm going to move on. But you also have the chat box feature. You can click on the chat button and actually type a question in, and it'll pop up so I can see it. Until she's available, we'll move on to Ms. Godfrey Watson has a question. What type of monitoring is done in these districts that have a low participation rate?
I'm not sure what she means by monitoring, but to be honest with you, advertising is always one of our bigger challenges. So, advertising the CPAC meetings and trying to get new membership, it's a challenge. So, we advertise through public notices. on the city's website. It gets sent out on the city's social media through our different platforms. We have really good engagement on what's that neighborhood platform? No, Nextdoor. Thank you. We have really good engagement on Nextdoor. So if people are a member of their Nextdoor neighborhood, I know CPAC information goes out through there for the meetings. But kind of once you get to your first meeting, then you're on the email list and all of that for distribution of further information. But yeah, getting new members is always a challenge for us.
Absolutely. And we also work really closely with the council members too, to actually promote CPAC participation. Whenever they're having their town halls, that's a really good time, for us to try to get that information out. We typically, like Ms. Burch stated earlier, just like with Councilwoman Morgan, where she has her town halls, we'll typically have somebody from each department that's there. And usually whenever we are at those meetings, we will actually speak to the CPACs.
Great. Ms. Barnum, I see you activated your camera. Do you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you so much. I know that a while back, the CPAC came about, and it was like a dual position of the community associations. And it kind of interfered with the community associations when they came up with the CPACs. And the biggest problem for me with this neighborhood bill of rights, nobody's reading it. Nobody's following it. I don't know what is the problem. It's well written. It is a city ordinance. It is part of the oath that the elected officials, all of them, raised their hand and swore to, that they would support, protect, and defend the city ordinances. And the neighborhood bill of rights is a city ordinance. However, I don't really see any of the elected officials, any of these organizations actually reading and holding the elected officials accountable to following the neighborhood bill of rights. They are supposed to come to us early, often, and they're supposed to get feedback from the community, not go do what you want to do first and then come and shove it at us. You're supposed to come, engage us first. The majority of the residents, even down to the city budget, I didn't write it, I just read it. Even the neighborhood bill of rights addresses the budget. We're supposed to be engaged in that budget. We're supposed to have say-so about the CIP plans, because the money is our tax dollars. And you all continually, repeatedly, consistently leave the communities out. Yes, you have a list of all the community associations. Yes, you have the 5 or 6 CPACs, but yet, even with CPAC, they still do not enforce people following the city ordinance. They're not enforcing these elected officials to follow their oaths. I have read the oath. It is very well written. And until these people do what we pay them to do, until they realize that we are their boss, it's not the other way around. They don't do what they want to do. They do as we instruct them to do. Like on any other job where there is an employer and employee, the level of disrespect that the elected officials have, they have forgotten for whom do they work. And they're, when they ignore our wishes and our desires and our instructions, it's insubordination, because we are their boss. And so we need accountability when they are violating, not to accept it and just turn their heads, and it needs to be dealt with when they are violating, and that isn't happening. when they come in these communities and do what they want to do, and the community is at loss, had no input, no nothing, that's a violation. And so until we address what the Neighborhood Bill of Rights that was written by City Council, made an ordinance back in 1995, okay? Until they do their duty and obey their oaths, then we are going to continue to be left behind.
Thank you, Ms. Barnum. I think she raised some interesting points there and concerns. And if I could just kind of form that into a question, how familiar are city officials with, and people that your bosses in your departments, how familiar are they with the Neighborhood Bill of Rights and what is actually in the Neighborhood Bill of Rights, and what level of importance do you think they attribute to it? And if not an importance, what can we do? What can you guys do to make sure that's put more in the forefront?
So what I can say to that is, number one, we have no control over elected officials with the city. You know, we are not elected officials. We work for the mayor. So we have no control over what city council members are or are not doing. But what I will say is that we are aware, very well aware, Chiquita and I, of the Neighborhood Bill of Rights. And, you know, I reread it again today. And, you know, as far as I know, we are meeting all of the requirements in the Neighborhood Bill of Rights. We put door hangers out before we do a construction project. We put project signs out before we do a construction project. We have neighborhood meetings. Like I said, our directors go to every CPAC meeting every month where they talk about new projects and get feedback from our citizens on it. So I am comfortable that on the administration side of things, we are following the Neighborhood Bill of Rights. But, you know, I can't speak for elected officials if that's really what Ms. Barnum's concern is.
Okay, let me move on. Mr. Stanley Scott's had his hand up for a while. Mr. Scott, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Absolutely. I'm not answering the question. I know what the rules are, because Eunice is absolutely correct. Are they in violation? We need to really file a federal lawsuit on the city of Jacksonville, because they're in violation of the law. Eunice not giving her opinion. She's dealing with facts. The same facts when it reads the thing that you're supposed to do. Now, I also heard representatives talking about they go out and put the information out. Well, that's not true. They are not reaching the people who deserve to find out what's going on in the community. Because what happened is, to make it things easy, you can reach out to the grassroots leadership and make sure they get the information, and they will reach out to those constituents in the community. The methodology that you're using, you sign off on the paperwork, but you're not giving the information to the people who need it the most in those districts. And I know this for a fact. So we're not going to go through this again, talking about the fact that or what the city is doing, because the city is in violation. Now, when it comes to the city council people, they are in violation. But also there's employees of the city of Jacksonville is not doing their job. And what Eunice is saying is absolutely right, because I have spent many hours with her, listening to her at night about the law to make sure I fully understand the law. And she go word by word to make sure I fully understand. And according to what the law say, the city of Jacksonville is in violation, the mayor office and city council. And then we talk about the workers at City Hall. It's all depends on who you are talking to, because a lot of times these some very nasty people. I say a third of the people at City Hall, they lie to you as if you are stupid. And Eunice is correct, and I'm a subject matter expert when it comes to economics. They'll tell me right in my face that I'm wrong, especially when it comes to economic development. But in closing, because I don't want to take up much time, my main point here, we need to revamp the city of Jacksonville is for neighborhood when they're getting the information out to the community. We have a very low tolerance when it comes to community engagement, not only with City Hall, but over this whole city. And we need to change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. As we can tell from Mr. Scott, people are very upset by this, taking this very seriously. And I hope it's, made an impression on both of you that, and we thank you again for being here. And we think this is the first step, hopefully, in a process moving forward where we can have better and stronger engagement with Jacksonville citizens and the mayor's office.
Houston, I think Michael Boylan had his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Boylan.
Thank you. I, as the only elected official on this forum tonight, my intent was to take the time to listen. But I have to stand on behalf of my colleagues. I know that 90% of my time, and I serve on a number of committees, from chair of the Land Use and Zoning, serve on this Social Justice, Community Impact Committee, on the Safer Together Committee, on the Opioid Epidemic Committee. But still, 90% of my time is reacting and addressing the concerns of my constituents. And that ranges from sidewalk issues to noise issues to drainage. Even just this evening, as I'm listening to you, I'm responding to a number of my constituents as to their individual concerns. So I think it's a little unfair to say, and I can't speak for all my colleagues because I don't know how they spend their day, but I know a number of us care very much about our constituents and the work that we do. And I do appreciate the importance of the CPAC. So I wanted to interject that as well. I regularly attend the Southeast CPAC, and I listen carefully to what their LUZ committee offers in terms of their recommendations. So to discount and to say that city council members simply are not serving their constituents, or as others have said here, I think it's totally a large mischaracterization. And Richard, I know Joyce, Councilmember Morgan, and you know well as I do how much she gives of her time and her heart to this work. It is not easy to being, and I apologize for vetting, it's not easy being a city council member in this community because the expectations are very high, the commitment is even higher. And for us to suffer the slings and arrows of saying that we don't do our job, with all due respect, is very unfortunate.
Thank you, Mr. Boylan. We appreciate you being here as well to get a different perspective than what we've heard so far. Let's see.
Houston, if I might
Go ahead, Dennis.
just interject something here. We've sort of sensed, we have sensed this lack of engagement and a feeling of being disengaged by particularly the people that we serve at the Urban League. And we had proposed for the city to consider a comprehensive plan for engagement that used a process out of the Institute of Local Government to fully engage the community through a number and a variety of ways, through focus groups, town halls, festivals, just to create a whole new sense of empowerment for the people. And we sent that in to both the city hall and the council, and we got no response at all. In fact, from the mayor's office, they didn't even respond to emails. And we just didn't understand why they couldn't do that. More recently, we have a coalition of African-American health professionals approaching the city to offer advice as to where COVID testing should be. And then they came later and said, we have some recommendations on where vaccines should be distributed. Each of those cases, the city just did not respond. They responded, but in their own way. We know how to do it. This is the way it's done. In the meantime, the people that want to help and want to get engaged and have the expertise are ignored. That's how they feel. And I urge Stephanie, you to tell the mayor that we're very interested in working with you to try out whether it's our approach or somebody else's approach, that we go back to a planning process that was used to do the consolidation supplement to respond to federal requirements. And that's went out of date in 2020. So there must be something going on to rejuvenate that plan. We just ask you to consider an approach. We've begun to do it ourselves through these town halls, but would love to have the city working with us and the city council and the other organizations throughout the city.
Sure. So yeah, thank you for those comments, Dennis. And I will say, you know, I do remember receiving that request from you all. I remember it being at the very beginning of this pandemic. And so we were, you know, we were working hard on trying to figure out, you know, the best way to respond to the pandemic at the time. And, you know, unfortunately, some things just had to be put on the back burner to make sure that we were responding, excuse me, as quickly and as efficiently as we could in doing the best that we could to keep our citizens safe during the pandemic. So unfortunately, a new community engagement plan was just not something that we could take up at that time. But again, like I've said, Chiquita and I are here tonight because we wanted to explain, you know, to give you some information, and also we're here to listen, you know. So if you all have ideas on what you feel would be better ways to engage with our citizens, then by all means, please let us know, you know. We are not opposed to making changes to how we do business. We want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to engage with our citizens through all levels of government. And I will say too, Dennis, because I've been so involved with the vaccine, with the testing and the vaccine response that we've done, I would just like to take a minute to try to give an explanation. And I understand not everybody's going to like it or accept it, but I do want to try to explain our point of view on all of that. You know, every time that we have to set up one of these operations, there's contracts involved. There's procurement that's involved. There's moving budget that's involved. So it's time and it's a lot of resources to get all of those things aligned in order to be able to stand up a testing site or a vaccine site. You know, I understand the comments from the community about wanting to get vaccines in churches. The reason why the city has done our vaccine sites or our testing sites at community centers or senior centers, number one, they're at senior centers because the senior centers are not open. We had to shut down the senior centers last year for the pandemic because it's not safe for them to be interacting with each other in the manner that they were doing before. So we had a vacant space that we knew would work for that purpose. And we didn't have to sign a contract with somebody with regard to liability concerns or paying rent to somebody for the space. So, you know, the concern with setting up the testing and vaccine sites at a senior center versus at a church, it's just more time and more contracts that are involved. And from our perspective, we're trying to get this out to the community as soon as we possibly can. And we knew that based on other operations that had happened, you need a certain amount of space. You need to be able to control the crowds in some manner. And not every space is conducive to a testing or a vaccine operation. So it's a matter of moving quickly and trying to do it well. And you just have to try to find the sweet spot somewhere in the middle. So it's not that we're not listening or outright rejecting those recommendations. It's simply timing, and in our case, obviously having the supply chain of the vaccines. We just don't have vaccines. And I don't know that there's any in the future for the city to give, other than the second doses that that we're providing to everybody who got their first doses. So just wanted to try to explain from the city's perspective why we've done it the way that we've done it. And literally the Lane Wiley and the Mandarin Senior Centers, those were the first vaccine sites because our vendor was already giving flu vaccines at those two sites. They were the two most utilized sites as well for flu vaccines and for testing. So we figured if people are going there for those services, they're going to go there for COVID vaccines as well. We knew that we needed to get the next vaccine site in the north or northwest part of town. We knew that all along. It didn't take anybody telling us that we needed to do it. And so that's why the next time that we got a batch of vaccines, we opened the next site at Clanzel T. Brown. So again, it's a matter of doing things quickly and efficiently and doing them well and trying to find that sweet spot somewhere in the middle for those two purposes.
Yeah, I guess, Stephanie, we're just asking that you consider engaging the people who have the expertise and who represent the community, who work in the community. Dr. Rogers Kane and a group of people wrote a letter to you and to the mayor about the needs. And instead of responding to them and calling them in and saying, let's talk, you come up with your own approach. We're going to need vaccine going forward. And we should be planning for that emergency situation and other emergency situations and involve the other members of the community to think that these CPACs would be effective in terms of planning for emergency operations. I seriously doubt it. I think you really need to bring in the people the experts that know what people need and listen to them. And again, longer term, I think we really should, and you're right, the pandemic has really stopped us from maximum engagement, let's put it that way. But let's work together to plan an engagement process that empowers people, makes them feel that they are listened to, and effectively works and creates change in the community. I was really pleased to hear that there was a recommendation for 100 million to be spent on septic tanks. Those septic tanks are dangerous. They're feeding pollutants into the river, and they're causing harm to the people in the northwest side that we represent. So I'm just urging you to consider working together for a comprehensive plan that would help us. And I know there are many other here that have questions, so I will stop talking. Houston, and let you take over your moderation.
Okay, thank you very much, Dennis. And just to piggyback on what Dennis said, I think just you all being here is a good first step to this process of coming up with a plan and getting things going in the right direction. I want to go to Mr. Solomon Crow. He's had his hand up for a minute, and I haven't forgotten about all you guys in the chat box. Time permitting, we will get to those questions. Solomon is a fellow student at Florida Coastal School of Law. He actually wrote a essay on the Neighborhood Bill of Rights and city engagement last year. So Solomon, if you've got a question or comment.
Good evening to all of you. And Ms. Burch and Ms. Moore, thank you for coming out. This is the first step to something big for our city. And, just hearing some of the people speak so far and some of the frustrations, it's understandable. And Mr. Boylan, I do agree with you in some aspect that, city officials aren't in their positions for no reason. And I know that a lot of you guys are actually trying to do your best, but there's still people who haven't been heard. And that's where the frustration comes into play here. Before I get to my first question, I just wanted to discuss a little bit about just from some of my research that I did writing my legal article on the city ordinance. It shows that yes, there have been some steps forward to trying to help these communities through the CPACs and different things like that. But one big problem that I saw while researching is the fact that these CPACs in these organizations, yes, the city provides a list, but the list isn't very comprehensive. There's sometimes only maybe an email. A lot of them don't have numbers. The ones that aren't considered CPACs just have their name and location, but no contact information. So, first question is, how do we get, if we're going to go forward with these CPACs and just going through community organizations, how do we get them to become more transparent, and how do we improve this list that's supposed to be out here for the public to even contact them?
So Solomon, a couple things on that. First of all, I would love to read your legal article that you wrote on this topic. So if you could email that to Chiquita and I afterwards, I would really appreciate it. I'm really interested to read that. The other thing is, our information in the database is only as good as what we get from the neighborhood organization. Mm-hmm. So if the neighborhood organization, when they're registering in our database, doesn't put that information in, it's difficult for us to get it from them. So, like I think you've identified, there's probably a lot of organizations who may be registered in the database, and maybe they did that because they wanted to get a neighborhood matching grant and they have no desire to participate in CPACs. Mm-hmm. They maybe did that as a requirement to meet a requirement for another program. So, unfortunately, like I said, our information in the database is only as good as what we're getting from the organization. And it all goes back to membership. If there's better ways that we can find membership, people to participate in the CPAC, then we can hopefully round out that database of neighborhood organizations better than what it is today. Okay.
And thank you for your response, first off. Just from that thought, that seems to be the big frustration, because, obviously for some people, for a lot of people in the northwest side of Jacksonville, you're not going to have them be able to get the access or contact the people when the information's not there for them. So how do we circumvent that in order to get them to the people that they need to speak to, especially if their organizations aren't part of CPACs?
Thank you so much for mentioning that. And that's where all of you come in, helping us to get the word out. Because again, like Ms. Burch just mentioned, the information that we have is only as good as what we get from those organizations. Mm-hmm. We actually promote our neighborhood database at all of our CPAC meetings. Anytime that we're making any advertisements, like Ms. Burch mentioned earlier about neighborhood matching grants, or whenever other people are concerned or are inquiring about how to establish a neighborhood organization, those are all things that our neighborhood services office assists with. But again, having the community to help us out, to get the word out to those individuals that may not necessarily have access to the internet, because I think that might be something that you're mentioning. Mm-hmm. We're going to need help with that, because we can't do it by ourselves. And that's the reason why, we really do try to connect with the community and share as much information as we can, because we do need to actually use those people that are participants in the CPACs as vehicles for distributing information, along with our city council members, boards and commission members, and things like that, just like what Ms. Burch mentioned earlier.
Got you. And as far as these, you stated that like with the CPACs, specifically the meetings that they have, obviously I know the mayor is a very busy man. I mean, this is a big city, but how often would anybody from, I guess, well, obviously not, if not him, somebody from his office, how often are you at those meetings? And just so people could possibly have a direct access to discuss some of these issues with him.
So that happens through our quarterly meetings with the CPAC chairs. So our department heads, who are really the ones who would be in the weeds on any kind of specific project requests or questions or issues that people are seeing in the community that need to be addressed, our department heads are at every CPAC meeting. But specific issues that that somebody wants to talk with the mayor's office about, would happen with our quarterly meetings with the CPAC chairs. And so the chairs, I will say, have been very good about bringing specific requests from their membership. It may be Mr. Smith is having a problem, with the ditch in his backyard. Is there anything you can do to help him with that? Or so-and-so thinks we need to add, $10 million to this nonprofit for whatever program they think is necessary. The chairs are very good about bringing specific requests to those meetings with them.
Okay. So from the presentation that you guys gave, which thank you so much for that. I think that's important for a lot of people in the city to see how it works before they can actually engage. But if we're going to continue with, I guess if we're going to continue with this CPAC, the idea that the CPACs is where are going to be the intermediaries between the citizens. How do we go about making sure that all of these neighborhoods who are already considered CPACs and all the other ones who aren't, how do we make sure that we at least flood these neighborhoods with information how to get to these people? Because there's certain people, especially with this past year, lots of people aren't trying to leave their house or trying to go to different meetings. And of course, yeah, there's the Zoom feature and stuff like that. But again, if you don't really have reliable, I guess, ways of getting in contact with these CPACs, it makes it hard. One of the comments I saw on the chat box was just the fact that, in certain areas like District 5 or the northwest of Jacksonville, there's a lot of people that you're saying that there's not a lot of, I guess, people participating. And just from my thoughts on just some of the research that I did last summer, it just seems to me like that's not all voluntary. There's lots of people out there who do want to communicate, but it's just really, really, really hard to get in contact with anybody, mayor's office, their CPAC leaders, etc. So how do we go about starting to make those improvements if this is the avenue we're going to go?
Well, that's one of the things that we're kind of leaning to you all for, to make suggestions to us on how we can improve our process, because the process that we have going, we've added as much value to it right now that we think that we can. Mm-hmm. But obviously we're hearing what you're saying and we're understanding the frustrations. We really do. But please, by all means, we're encouraging you to give us some suggestions so that we can possibly implement those changes to make our processes better. You would be a good way for us to start finding out, how to do that. If you're talking about these challenging areas for us to reach, how do you propose that we go about doing that? What are some suggestions that you have?
Well, just from researching for last summer and just looking at into the
start. Can I interject real fast? To all the people with questions, I think now is a good time to segue from the Q&A.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. We can do that.
To the portion of I want to hear your thoughts on, because this is where we're going to kick off the next segment. Is as the two people have asked, what are our suggestions? How can we start building this relationship with the community and city government, especially via the mayor's office? How can we build a stronger relationship and hold them accountable for those in city government who aren't abiding by the neighborhood bill of rights? Not pointing fingers. How can we do that? And I just want to say to all those who have asked questions in the chat box that we're going to get to, I will make a note of those and we'll forward them to Ms. Moore and Ms. Burch later after this. So hopefully we can get some answers back for you. But Solomon, go ahead.
Okay, I apologize. I know we're on time constraints, but just some of the things that I think would play a big part in getting more community engagement is improving on these lists. I know, like you say, that it's up to these organizations to put their information, but there needs to, I guess, incentivize them to begin to put more, I guess, useful information, more contact information, because that creates transparency between them and their communities, and in turn, them and you. And another thing, and I know you guys are not part of the city council, but like just, I know, Councilman, if you're still here, there's one provision within the Jacksonville Code of Ordinances, section 656-130C, that pretty much is, it states here, the failure of a neighborhood organization, CPAC, or other organization required to be notified under this section shall not invalidate or otherwise have any effect upon a public hearing or action taken by the committee or the council on the application for rezoning. So essentially, this is a ordinance within the Jacksonville city ordinances that's pretty much allows the city to circumvent having to even, I guess, contact or notify these CPACs, which a lot of these neighborhoods are relying on. And so even though there might be signs or different things put up, a lot of people don't know what's going on and are just, they feel left out. And so how do we go about trying to adjust some of these ordinances that have been put in place pretty much to circumvent the Neighborhood Bill of Rights?
So Solomon, what I would say to that is, if people were engaged with the CPAC, regardless of what that part of the ordinance code says, the CPACs, most of them have zoning subcommittees, and they get an electronic booklet. They get a link every month, I think every 2 weeks, actually, every 2 weeks, to the new zoning applications that come into the city. So the CPACs are advised very well of what matters are pending as far as rezonings or variances or whatever may come before the LUZ committee. You know, as soon as the application period is up for that particular cycle. So if people are engaged with the CPAC, then they would be getting all of those zoning notifications.
Gotcha.
Solomon, can I follow up on that?
Yes, sir.
We're interested also. I believe it's is it District 5? Is District 5 pretty much the north? Yeah, that's northwest.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, and then you have the core area. I guess that's 1. So you have these districts butting against District 1, and so if there's an entity in District 5 that has a suggested project for that particular community, what is the process for interjecting that into the current system? Would that entity have to go through the CPAC, the council member that represents that district, and I believe there are more than one council member in these CPACs because it's only 6. So we're getting, how do you engage the system? How do you get your idea? How do you get your idea for consideration if the CPAC is not up to par in terms of taking forward the recommendation from the community?
Well, Dr. Danford, I would want to hope that our CPACs are effective with our coordinators and the way that they're managing them. I think the biggest challenge that we have with our CPACs is not so much of how we're running them, but the participation that we have. We've got to get the participation up, because any of our coordinators that are actually facilitating these meetings, well, I don't want to say facilitating, because the CPACs are actually citizen-led. Our coordinators are actually there just to, kind of maintain order, so to speak, and actually pass the information along as being requested. But we've got to have participation from the citizens. So it sounds like tonight, what it is that we're asking is, how can you all help us to come up with a better way to engage people? Because we try to get the information out the best way that we can. but apparently, you know, it's not reaching everybody, as you all are suggesting. So we're actually open to hear what it is that we can do better to reach those people, to build the attendance to the CPACs so that people can be heard or feel like they can be heard.
Is there anyone out
May
there that
I?
has a specific?
May I?
Yeah, sure.
It would be beneficial if you make the announcement on the 6 o'clock news, where most of the senior citizens view. I'm here now at a home of one of the residents, one of the senior citizens who wanted to be a part of this meeting because I was telling her about it. And I came to her home, and that's where I am here with her so she could partake. And if you would put the announcement on the TV, if you would put the announcement on the radio, if you would pass out the information like you do when they want somebody to vote for them. Right. You know how they saturate your mailboxes with I remember a while back, the city council person used to send out notifications to your mail, letting you know of stuff that's coming up or issues or whatever. Now, all I do know is when Ms. Burch was talking about how busy she was and with the COVID, all I do know is that the first paragraph, maybe the second, I forgot to bring my paper with me to read it to you verbatim, but it's either the first paragraph or the second. It's the second one to be exact. It says prompt, courtesy. It tells you verbatim what your job is. And it doesn't say anything about if COVID come about. It says you are supposed to make contact within 24 hours, if nothing but to say a response is forthcoming. Not ignore, not make excuses. That's not written there. And then when you all tell me you all have read it, then I question, did you understand what you read? Because it's very simply written. I know because I read it often. And when it says advance notification, they have torn up Norfolk. Ms. Jones is my witness. The community is highly upset because they didn't receive any advance notification that they were going to tear down the Harborview sign. None whatsoever. They did not receive any notification. The church even did not know that they were going to tear up their parking lot, and they had no idea that work was going to take place on Norfolk. The community, we have almost 1,000 petitions, do we not, Ms. Jones? Right. Because the people did not know that they were planning to do a Sutel Road diet, and the people have not been notified. They do it all the time. Up until this time. And let me just say this. As long as CPAC been in existence, and as long as these community neighborhood associations been in existence, apparently you all haven't read the Charter Review final report either. The Charter Revision Commission, another governmental entity, another thing by the mayor or whomever, that organization, that commission just did a final report. And in their final report, you know what it says? They found profound disparities. And they list them by zip codes, okay? And they made suggestions, but if you haven't read it, you don't know. And then they even talked about how it's been 50 plus years.
Ms. Barham, we're having a hard time hearing. I don't know if anyone else is, but I am. I don't know if she's covered up her microphone or.
Yeah, I can't hear either. we may have to
Way
move on.
Yeah,
The one way to help get the word out to the community, really, if you just do your JOB, every job has a description. I'm serious. Every job. And the job, when you read the job descriptions, it plainly tells you what you're supposed to do. And if they would do their duties, if they will follow what they get paid to do, the community would be engaged, because some of you all, that's your job. I sit, how many hours do you sit, Ms. Jones, calling the association members? And you do it for free, don't you?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
You have access to phone numbers. The city council people have ways of getting. I pulled the voters registration list. How many we got? About 500 names, don't we?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
And we sit there and go down that list, calling, trying to engage the community, and we do it for free.
Right.
And if Ms. Jones, how old are you, Ms. Jones? If I may,
81.
Ms. Jones is 81 years old.
So,
And if she can do it for free, what's the problem with all y'all who at work? I don't understand.
Ms. Barnum, thank you for your input, and we're really beyond our time at this point, but we really appreciate it, and we've actually seen your write-up on this, and it's very good, so we very much appreciate it. And what I'm hearing is Ms. Burch has made it clear that they're interested in help, in hearing about other ways to do things. And I'd like to have, if you could, Houston, wind us down and hand it over to Dr. Richard Danford to give some closing remarks along with our board chair.
absolutely. Thank you, Dennis. Well, I just want to say, I thank everyone for coming out. I thank the, city representatives that were here, Ms. Moore, Ms. Burch, and as well as City Councilman Boylan. We thank you all for being here. Really enthusiastic, where we can go from here. I think hopefully this is the start of something good. Maybe we could have more meetings like this. Maybe more city officials could turn out and hear what citizens like Ms. Barnum have to say. I thank Solomon Crow as well, and really all of you that have been on here and had questions. And as I said earlier, those of you that asked questions in the chat box we didn't get to, hopefully I'll be able to email Ms. Burch and Ms. Moore and get some answers to you all. And as well as the emails that were put in the chat box, we will get Solomon Crow's policy piece that he did on the Neighborhood Bill of Rights, as well as the slides as soon as Ms. Moore sends those over to me about the CPAC and different information. So that's all I've got. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Danford.
And I'll just say one last thing, Houston. It's very clear that everybody in this, the chat, as well as in the town hall, really cares about the city. People in the mayor's office, people in the city council, and people in CPACs. They all care about the city and want to do a great job in what they're doing. So, and it's great to hear the request to work together.
Absolutely.
So Richard?
Thank you, Dennis. I'll close out by, first of all, let me thank you, Chiquita and Stephanie, for stepping up. It certainly means it's very important that we were able to hear from you all this evening. I'm hopeful with the conversation that we've had. One, that the city really wants to engage the community more so than we're doing. And the community wants to engage the city's process more than we're able to. So we're willing, along with our partners and others in the communities, to join the city and developing a more robust process in community engagement going forward. I think that just the time, Stephanie, that we have in this administration and doing this, that we can take some of this time and really help bring this community closer together. There's a lot of divisiveness in our community. It goes back many, many years, and certainly even the more recent incidents. So we've got to find a way. We've got to have more interaction. And listen, I live with a city council person, so I'm aware of the work they do. I mean, it is, I wouldn't want to be a city councilman. I'm telling that right up front. There is a lot, if you do your job, I mean, if you really want to help the community, it's a lot of work, and I appreciate council members stepping up for that. So we look forward in closing to find a process to work with the mayor's office, the city government, in making sure that the community has the input that it expects and that it looks forward to. So thank all of you for joining us, and I'll turn it back over to Houston.
Thank you, Dr. Danford. So with that, I think we're going to close out. Just to pick up on what both of them said, we're just, we know that both sides, people in city government and the citizens are wanting to get together on this. We know it's not a lack of, empathy or care or anything like that. So we just hope moving forward, we can come up with a process that better engages the citizens and city government decisions that are made. And I just want to thank everyone again for being a part of this, and hopefully we can do it again.
Houston, I just wondered if Ms. Godfrey was still on, our chairwoman.
I'm here. I'm here. Thank you, Dennis. Just a couple of things. I just to see that how everyone is so passionate about this topic. We're not going to belabor the time, but I do want to just thank Ms. Burch and Ms. Moore as well, and also Mr. Harris for doing a phenomenal job facilitating this evening. Awesome. Mr. Boylan, thank you for your input, and Dr. Danford, thank you for being the visionary, and Dennis for facilitating and helping us navigate this. Solomon, I'm looking forward to reading your dissertation as well. But we all are very passionate about these topics. I think that once, like as you said, Dr. Danford, we all have to come together and work on one accord. That's the key, working on one accord. And as Ms. Burch stated, that they're looking for suggestions. So I think that I understand the passion, but then when we get past the passion, we have to come up with a solution. So I look forward to the follow-up as far as we leverage our community with our mayor's office, and just going forward from here. Thank you, and back into your hands, Mr. Harris.
You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, I keep doing that. My mouth's getting dry. I've been talking a lot. No, thank you, Ms. Watson. Just want to say, unless Dr. Danford or Dennis has anything else, I think that's it for tonight. And once again, thank everyone for coming out, and hopefully we can do this again.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for your time. We know everybody's busy, but it's important that we have this night. So
everybody busy. Everybody. I don't get that, man. Y'all need to stop saying that. Everybody's not busy if you care.
That's right. I agree with you, sir. And that's why we're here. We want to start to work to get things done. And I appreciate you, Ms. Burch, and you, Ms. Moore, and Councilman Boylan for coming and joining us today.
And by the way, Councilwoman Joyce Morgan, I see signed on. Ms. Morgan, would you care to say hello before we close?
Sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank Mr. Boylan for being here as well. I got on late, but I hope Mr. Boylan told everyone that we are also hosting our Safer Together meetings. Just focused on all of the kinds of things that you guys have been talking about tonight. And I thank Ms. Barnum. I thank Stanley Scott. I thank every one of you for being here, because you guys are the ones that I work for so hard, as my husband was saying. And, I don't know if we talked about town hall meetings, but I've done a town hall meeting every month except for 2 months out of the year since 2015. So I totally believe in community engagement. And since I see Mr. Boylan here, he and I will certainly continue working with you on whatever you need to be sure that you are totally engaged. So thank you all tonight for doing this. Thanks to my husband for, as someone said, being the visionary. We just appreciate you.
And I too want to say thank you to each of you. This is very important. I know I'm a little bit passionate, but when you need a lot, you have to be passionate a lot. Right. So, and Ms. Morgan, I just thank God for you. I do. I've been to your community meetings. I've watched you in action, and I wish you could teach a class and tell the rest of them this is what they need to be doing, because we look to you. That's why you were, elected to be our voices, to speak on our behalf, to be our employee. And you can't work for me if you don't listen to me. If you don't follow what I say, then the employer-employee relationship is damaged. So I have seen you in action. I am just impressed with you. And thank you for always willing to listen. I just thank you. And I thank everyone who put this on. Thank you, Dr. Danford. Soon as I saw the Neighborhood Bill of Rights, that's my passion. So I thank you guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Barnum. We're grateful for your passion. Thank you so much, and all of you that have passion. And I know it's on both sides, and it's passion to build stronger relationships. So I think we're going to close it out for tonight. But once again, thank everyone for coming out, and hopefully we'll get to do it again. So everyone have a good night and take care.
All right,
God
good
bless.
night.
All right.
Good night.